The news gang is here this last Thursday of the unusually cold month of August. The weather, however, is not on the table tonight, but the punchline, take and kicker lie in wait as the memo and the angle re-energize off the set. Tonight, is oil a blessing or a curse? Kenya's first ever barrels took to the export seas this week as leaders cheered from the shore, with others reducing the crude oil to a hunter's harvest. We will allocate the pieces of meat shortly on the news gang. And, well, further inland, Kenyans this week witnessed what we can only call a clash of the philosophy of Caesar and the ethics of Zacchaeus. Yes, that short man. We will discuss corruption and taxes. And, by the way, which one funds the other? Here's the news gang. We want to start off, first of all, with the President of the Republic of Kenya talking about the war on corruption. Apparently, wasee hawacheki with this one.
Na mimi nataka niwaambie wote, kuna wasee sasa wameamua kufa kupona. Kazi hii ya kuchimbua tabu. So please, msiseme ni mimi sijatuma mtu. Wewe ndio umekutwa ukifanya lako. Na hawa wasee hawachesi. I'm telling you, hawachesi na hawacheki.
Okay, kuna mchezo that is going on here. So this was, of course, and we'll get to that topic. This was when the oil was being exported out of the country. But his, again, renewed talk on corruption is coming in a time when we just saw the arrests with tax evasion. So, Francis, what is the context in which he's speaking right now?
Well, the president seems to speak tough every other day on the fight against corruption. But when you listen to quite a number of people, especially in the reactions that you get on social media and off social media, you get a feeling that people are like, yeah, now do the job. Maybe the threats, the ultimatums may not necessarily be what people are interested in hearing, but people want to see guys arrested. And there's also a feeling that maybe the arrests are a bit too dramatic. The effectiveness of these arrests will be in effective prosecution. And effective prosecution will be as a result of watertight evidence that is presented before the judges. But even more important is recovery of the assets that have been stolen. Because it is not enough to arrest people, it is not enough to take them to court.
Or even to convict them.
Or even to convict them.
Right.
If somebody is accused of plundering billions, and they go in maybe even for a year or 2 or 3, or even lose their jobs, and they still keep the loot, then we have done very little. So probably, maybe these 2-3 years or thereabout, let how say wasichese na wasicheke. At least now people see the real fight against corruption, not iyama story.
And it's interesting, though, that now he says how cheki, and we have had the president speaking on his frustrations. You remember the Munataka Nifanye Nini Jameni statement that happened in his first administration. So where are we with that? Is it tough talk now? Do you think it's a little different in his second term, Linus?
I think, Yvonne, this will be better received than when the president makes his own commitment to fight corruption. He spoke of others. Kuna wasee hawacheki.
Institutions.
Institutions. He's not saying mimi sicheki, because people moved on from that. Let's not forget, some time back, the president stood and said that corruption has its heart in his office. And we thought he'd do something
about it.
He never did anything. So this kind of assurances are now better received, because principally interpreted, it means he's letting the institutions to do the job. Who are these wases who are not smiling?
It's obvious who is referring.
It's obvious. He's referring to the DCI, George Kinoti. He's referring to DPP, Nurdin Haji. He's referring to ESCC, Tolib Mbarak. And I think he's referring to the likes of, now at KRA, the person who was...
And even the Inspector General of Police,
Mutyambai. Absolutely. And I think, let me say this. the spirit of letting institutions function is a very, very much welcome thing. If the country was to wait for State House to fight corruption, that would not record as much success as letting Mutiambai, letting Kinoti, letting DPP, letting the KRA Commissioner General, and letting these institutions do their job. And I think this is what has been missing, political will. So it must have been very, very assuring for the heads of these institutions to listen to the president say, "Iko say hawacheki." That is as it should be. I just hope, he lets it stay that way, because what happens sometimes is, this wase hawacheki can also come to your doorstep. Because corruption has a long tail.
Absolutely, and that was where I was going to go into. So. To what extent are we removing some level of responsibility on the president himself and State House? Because this is a man who has the power to hire and fire, at least within his cabinet. So yes, institutions are important, but are we seeing like political will from himself to do what is needed, at his level, at least within his sphere of influence?
I think the first question, Yvonne, that will obviously be on Uhuru's doorstep is, why did you not do any of this in the first term?
Exactly.
Why did you wait till the second term? Did you hold back and in the process let so much go wrong under your watch just because maybe you didn't want to jeopardize the second term? The second question, of course, will be whether this is a sincere process that targets every corrupt corner.
And therein, my point. You see, the work of DCI, ESCC, DPP, and the Inspector General of Police will be to identify who are the corrupt. And if they are within the president's circle, or even the cabinet, or whichever area, then he releases them to the institutions for action. But as long as there will be allegations that A can be released but B cannot, deal firmly with C but
not D,
go easy on D, becomes a problem.
But isn't that exactly what happened when we remember the 5.2 billion shilling Afia House scandal?
Afia House.
Sundales International, that was associated with the president's close relatives. In fact, his sister and his cousin apparently benefiting from privileges offered to persons who are leading companies, persons with disability who are leading companies. And what happened in that case? The president was absolutely quiet about the Afia House scandal.
You see,
when it touched not State House, it touched his family.
And you see that invites an opportunity for politics. Politics, I mean, when you hear people say we are being targeted or A is being targeted, why are you looking at A and not B? Why are you tough on X and not Y? So the war against corruption is won if it is a cross-board. Because truth be told, if you really want to nab the corrupt, they are known. If you entrusted such and such a person with this amount of money and the Auditor General's report is indicating that a certain amount of money has been lost and that officer cannot be able to account for that money, regardless of
that should be
where they are, they should be taken in. And that is how the war against corruption will be won, when it is seen to be a cross-board. And luckily, when I listen to the president now, he seems to have seen what many people were seeing, or how many people were looking at it, in terms of let the institutions work, let the institutions tell us who they are targeting, who are the corrupt, and once that has been done, then allow the institutions to go the
whole hog. Yeah. Okay, but I want to talk about...
Can I just add that the president is perhaps the most reluctant political administrator to ever occupy State House. I mean, there have been 4 occupants. He is very reluctant to do things personally, directly. What I mean is, for even the corruption cases, he's always waited for some other natural forces to come to play. You see, let's look at the replacement of Henry Rotich. The president did not act politically until the DCI and DPP acted.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about.
We had a minister, we had a cabinet secretary being arrested with the title of cabinet secretary, if you look at his predecessor, Mwai Kibaki had corruption allegations to deal with. He dealt with the allegation on Kiraitu Murungi,
David
Muraria, and those George Saitoti. Yeah. What did he do? Before any of those allegations now became formal in the judicial process, he went on television and said, Nimewaachisha kazi. Nimewaachisha kazi.
Yes.
And I think there was another one where he was accepting the resignation.
Yes.
No, actually, this one he had accepted the resignation. Kuachisha kazi was after the referendum.
Oh,
when
yes,
he was
yes,
dissolving.
the fallout on,
Yeah. So he acted politically. Uhuru is totally reluctant to act politically. He almost fears to touch the politics. But there could be a reason. Times have changed. He is running an administration that is actually a coalition government in just a different way. Now, how you appoint a cabinet secretary is not the same way you would appoint a cabinet minister like it used to be.
Days, yeah.
He'll need the House, and I think he can't trust the numbers that are in the House.
Even though the majority is his.
Yes.
But then
so if you sack a minister and replace with another one, you're never sure how it may go with Parliament.
That's right. It could be blood on the floor of Parliament. Yes. But then now that we're comparing, 2013 and 2017, or at least his 2 terms, he did reveal something quite interesting about apparently things that used to happen in State House and interventions that used to be made. It was a rather candid admission. Listen.
Tutasoma sisi tu kwa magazeti, fulani ndio huyo tena ameenda, huyo siku ingine fulani ndio huyo ameenda. So kila mtu pahali alipo fungua macho na ufikirie ile ambayo unafanya. Hakuna pahali ile mtu alikuwa anapiga simu, mambo yamekwenda, ni noma, nisaidie. Hizo simu zilizimwa. Sasa ni wewe ujitetee.
So there was a time that hizo simu zilikuwa zinapigwa. Can he go ahead and just be honest and tell us who called and who he sorted?
Okay,
was this not a crazy admission on his part?
There's something I don't want us to miss there. Sisi tutasoma kwa gazeti too that somebody has been taken. So, some time back, not too long ago, the president said gazeti ni ya kufunga nyama.
Oh, well, at least it's a validation.
Now, in terms of chronology, please read the content first.
Yes,
before
there you go. Before wrapping it with the meat.
I look at it this way. When the president says, I was more interested in where he said hizo simu zilizimwa.
Those days mlikuwa mnapiga.
So simu zilikuwa on, so sasa zimezimwa. But maybe it's a good thing that let nobody seek assistance or protection from the highest office in the land. So that's also a message to all other persons maybe below him that you should not entertain any attempts to protect an individual who is facing corruption charges. But as Lina's alluded to, 2013 to 2017, I would think there's probably a few things that the president would not have done for obvious reasons. Maybe looking at a re-election in the offing, and somebody would even probably say he was kind of a political captive in that first term, that there are some things he wouldn't do. In fact, when he was at John De Matthew's burial, he said that sitafuti kura. So tutapambana na wakora, sitafuti kura.
Meaning, so it's a tacit admission that he was held hostage. He has
nothing to lose in these 3 years or so if he was to allow everybody to be arrested if they are corrupt. But also it means maybe in the first term, 2013 to 2017, he had something to lose, and maybe the reason why he would go slow. I don't know whether it's a good thing, because ordinarily it would mean then if you're serving your first term, cheza chini, but second term, go all out.
And by that time, is it too late to do anything? We want to take a short break. I just really want to know who are these people who called him and what he did about it. So, did he help some people out of a bit of a tight spot when they had been arrested or charged with corruption or allegations or whatever? Well, thankfully, those simu zimezimwa, if he is to be believed. All right. Keep your comments coming in. The hashtag is NewsGang at Citizen TV Kenya at... what are your handles? At Linus Kaikai, at F Shuri, and at Yvonne Okwara as well. We'll continue to sample your feedback. It's also showing at the bottom of your screen. Kennedy Kombura says, in my view, I think the president is taking the right direction in fighting corruption, thanks to the handshake. So maybe that's also something else that's given him some sort of legitimacy. And that the hashtag to use is Newsgang. Graft and Taxes, which one funds the other? Linus.
Very interesting question. It reminds me of the story of Caesar. And Caesar was a title for Roman emperors. And the person that introduced or improved the taxation process was Caesar Augustus. And this is the same chap who actually ordered a worldwide census. It's August. We just did we are doing a census as Kenyans. And the purpose was to actually improve tax collection. So the story has never changed since.
How poignant is that, considering what we are going through right now?
Yes, it's happening right now, and the story has never changed.
Yeah.
The purpose of actually doing a census is to, first of all, improve the tax collection. And then there's another person that really is relevant to our story as Kenyans when it comes to taxes is Zacchaeus of the Bible, the short man of Jericho who overcharged people. And what we are seeing, and you correctly said in your intro earlier, that there is a clash of the philosophy, between the philosophy of Caesar and the ethics of Zacchaeus. And in Kenya, they cross all over the place. Sometimes the tax collector himself has been turning into Zacchaeus. Now, when it comes to the events we've seen this week we had the Commissioner General Githimburu here explaining why the recent activities that included very robust enforcement measures, arrest of 2 prominent business persons. And it has generated a lot of discussion in this country whether this was the right first option. Now, there will always be a big debate in Kenya about the handling of taxes because of the corruption question. And you saw a lot of anger that was being directed at the tax authorities, that, okay, you are collecting everything, but taking it through the other door of corruption. And this is Caesar versus Zacchaeus. Because
indeed, Kenyans say we're happy to pay our taxes, but only if we know it's going to its intended purpose. And so, the debate this week has been tax avoidance versus tax evasion. But I know we've talked extensively about the man at the helm of this. Francis, who is this guy? And I have to say, it's interesting that he, DCI, DPP, they're all just very happy to be in the media, which is great. We're asking for openness. But I often have to wonder if a lot of this isn't done for the cameras.
I don't know exactly what to say, but it's good because people are in the era of transparency and accountability and openness in governance. People want to know what is happening. And it also takes away the mystery that, oh, this is James Githimburu, the guy who is dealing with tax evidence.
So no more enigma.
So we now know him. But even as we say so many things about Uhuru's fight against corruption and everything else, one of the things that probably he will be credited for is at least finally we have the right people, I would say, in the right offices. Because the moment they get into office, you realize there's some action and there's also goodwill, public goodwill on the persons who have been appointed to various offices. You can see already people are feeling James Githimburu is probably the right guy in that office. And there's also a lot of comparison between him and his predecessor. John Jeraini. Luckily, tax collection or payment of taxes is something many Kenyans do. Actually, the people who evade taxes are not the small Kenyans, what you'd say the ordinary wananchi. They're the big shots. But the question has always been, if you're talking about tax evasion of 41 billion shillings or 14 billion shillings or whichever amount of billions, the question that comes to mind immediately is, where was KRA when this money increased from 1 million, 2 million to 1 billion to now a number of billions? Number one. Number two, it is another person's responsibility to make sure that that which is collected in taxes is spent prudently and properly. So let Gidhi do his work of collecting taxes. Let the same pressure be mounted on the people who are managing various institutions to deal with those who are given these resources to manage on behalf of Kenyans, and they mismanage them. Because you cannot say we will not pay taxes because some people are stealing. Let those who are stealing be arrested and be made to account for that which
money
has been mismanaged under their watch.